I cite China, I think 80% with admiration. I admire the Chinese because I've seen in my lifetime, in my rural village on Lake Victoria now, which should be renamed if you ask me.
First of all, why is a village in Africa named Lake Victoria? Is he from Kenya? I mean, really, can you find a lake in England or somewhere in the UK named after an African town or village or proverb? I tell you what, colonialism has really left its mark and damaged on the continent. And we as Africans, whether in Africa or in the diaspora, not only do we have to awaken from whatever it is, slumber, laziness, complacency, ignorance, and stupidity we have found ourselves in, we not only have to wake up, but we also have to take charge of the continent and take charge and change the image and the narratives that has been pushed and portrayed by the world concerning Africa. We cannot expect the world to paint a better image and a better picture of us. It is now up to us to show the world who we truly are and what we mean to do.
A rural village on Lake Victoria now, which should be renamed if you ask me. We are eating fish, tilapia from China.
Why are they importing fish from China to Africa? We have a vast land of water, lakes, rivers, seas, and oceans all throughout the continent or even surrounding the continent. Why are we importing fish, tilapia? Only God knows where they even feed those tilapias in China. What is wrong with our leadership in Africa that we cannot farm or raise our own fish, the importing chicken, the importing beef? Are there no green grass in Africa for them to raise up horses and beef to graves? Come on now. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Africa, we have to wake up.
Because I've seen in my lifetime, in my rural village on Lake Victoria now, which should be renamed if you ask me, we are eating fish, tilapia from China. Somebody is farming tilapia in China. I do not know what they feed tilapia there. But they then bring them for us to eat. Fact. And yet there is a lake there. We are importing chicken from Brazil.
Lord.
And eggs from Brazil. A lake there. We are importing chicken from Brazil and eggs from Brazil. Have our chicken forgotten how to lay eggs?
You guys laugh, this is not funny.
You know, these are the little things that annoys one.
It's insulting.
And I'm submitting to us, therefore, in defining Pan-Africanism, and he's been at it, we are at it in different ways. Let us not imprison ourselves in this definition, whether it's state or this. What we want is an Africa. I'm putting it in a very crude way. I wish I was saying it in my mother tongue. What we want is an Africa where the boundaries imposed on us are purely for purposes of administration, where the boundaries do not stop one Africa from moving from one country to the other in an orderly manner. We are not saying that there will be disorder. Where there will be a form of government, whether the so-called presidents will now be called governors, I do not know. We'll find a name for them. But they'll simply administer that territory, but there will be a Pan-African government that regulates us on critical matters, on defense, on foreign affairs, on matters of the economy and currency, on the exploitation of our resources, that determines how we defend ourselves. And I can't agree with you more. You know, if today Africa, if the United States of America wanted to destroy Africa, it could do so in 1 week. This is how. They would station 2 carriers on Indian Ocean, 2 down south, 2 in the west, and 2 in the Mediterranean, and they would unleash all these missiles and would be back into the Stone Age. We are weak. And now, because we have bases in Djibouti, you have an American base, you have a Chinese base, you have a Japanese. In other words, Africa is in a situation which it cannot control. If there was a war today, Africa is a target. In a war that we do not know. We have been involved. When the European tribes were fighting in 1914, they don't call them tribal wars. But when the European tribes were fighting in 1914, we were there. And I'm sure there is a monument here in Tanzania commemorating Africans who participated in a tribal wars. The English tribe was fighting the German.
This is very sad and pathetic. I pray that Africa really wake up. Because Africa have more than enough natural resources to supply the world. Yet we are begging for handouts from the world. Something is wrong. How can a continent be so rich in natural resources and yet the most impoverished continent known across the globe? Something is wrong. Our leaders are not getting together to put their heads together to find out what's wrong. I know they claim that colonialism has left, but we all know it hasn't. It is just behind the scene and using our leaders as puppets on the string and putting the strings any which way they want. And probably some of those leaders, I'm guessing, assuming some of those leaders probably cannot say or do anything. As that those colonial slave masters are behind the scene that have changed their name to whatever, the elite. There's nothing our leaders, some of the leaders, I know some are speaking up, some are doing better, but we really have to awaken. We have raw natural material throughout the whole continent that we can make some of the best military missiles, weapons, grenades, nuclear weapons, and most of those nuclear weapons and stuff, I bet you the raw materials came from Africa. The technology we have to do with the iPhone, the iPad, the smart TV, the smart house, the stereo system, most of today's technology, those raw materials came from Africa. But our leaders, some of them are so wicked and so evil and so selfish and so greedy that they will sell our raw natural materials to the West for pennies on the dollars. And then the West will bring it here, manufacture products, ship it back to us in Africa, and sell those very same products back to us for an arm and a leg. This vicious cycle have got to end, and it has to end with a generation that says enough is enough. Not on my watch and not on my shift, not anymore. If I perish, I perish, but Africa must be great. By the sweat of my brow or by the last blood of my body, Africa must rise up. That sleeping giant called Africa must rise up again. Why are we importing fish, tilapia from China? Why are we importing chicken and eggs from Brazil? If there was unity and oneness in the continent, what one country in Africa lack, they can get it from their brother, and vice versa. Those chickens and tilapia can be easily imported from other parts of other nations in Africa. I tell you what, colonialism have really messed our mind up. We don't even trust each other. What happened to inter-African continental trading? Why things must come from outside of the continent? Are we not self-sufficient enough to help out and support each other where we are lacking? Something is wrong. Something is seriously wrong with the African man's mind, with the continent. I don't know who's behind this, but if there's someone or something, or organization or people that is behind this, I'm beseeching God, I'm asking heaven to begin to expose and review and make them pay. Disease outbreak, epidemic. There's a guy called Mike Adams. He did a documentary. YouTube took it down, but I got a copy of that documentary before YouTube took it down. You can go to his website. I think it's called thehealthranger.org or .com. And he said there are laboratories in remote villages strategically positioned all over Africa. He said whenever you hear, and you happen to be a Caucasian or white dude, so you don't think it's racist, racism. And he said, whenever you hear about disease epidemic outbreak anywhere in Africa, this is an article he wrote. I read on his page myself, and I printed the article and kept it for myself. He said, whenever you see disease epidemic outbreak in Africa, throughout the continent, he said big pharma is behind it because they have laboratories all throughout remote villages in Africa, and they use the Africans as medical scientific guinea pigs. I've always suspected this. I never had evidence to prove until I came across his videos and his documentaries and his articles. And I say, thank you for confirmation, God, because I knew there must be someone or some evil agenda behind this that wants to blot us out or wipe us from the face of the earth. We have to rise up. Oh, God, I don't even know where to go or how to start.